Hey everyone, I'm gonna install these piston rings today. I already done the third and second. I'm gonna be doing the first ones. These are a little bit harder to get to, and the second ones too. The third ones aren't too bad, but the second one's kind of tough because if you do it by hand you might break them and you don't want to do that. The first ones, there's indentions on it. Even the second ones, there's a marking on it. I don't know if you guys could see it, but I'll show you right here. It says top.
So you got to insert one side into the little slot, and then you have to insert the other side into that slot. And it's in a triangle position, so that way the piston ring goes into the corner of the tool. You have to hold it firm, slide it over, and then basically just release.
There we go.
And then your piston ring is installed.
This is number 4. So same thing. Look at your markings. It says top right here. Make sure it goes to the top. Put that in. Stretch it out. Line it up. Alright, so I'm gonna put this one onto the fourth one. As you can see, the tool's in there. Stretch it over. Make sure, oops. And there. I'm gonna do double check, make sure the top is on the top. You can see the lettering, the marking. It says top right there. Just double check it before you continue. Number 2. I don't want to move them because I already adjusted them. I'll probably look at them again to double check that they're correct. Markings right there. This tool is so amazing. If you do it with your fingers, you might get into that problem of not being able to stretch it too much, and you would probably break the piston ring like someone over here.
Talking about me, the cameraman.
And it's not even the first one. It was the last piston ring he had by hand. There you go. Making sure it's top. Good. Where's that bag? And all these pistons were clean already. The crankshaft is cleaned. All we need to do is compress the rings onto the motor. Once we do that, we can put the crank and tighten up all these bolts back together. And then we still need to clean the oil pan, so that'll probably be the last thing. The oil pump, I got a brand new oil pump, which is right here. Pretty neat, but I can't do that until I get the crank in. Look how clean this is. Oh, it's alright, it's not too clean. Alright, make sure it's top. Stretch it. Oop. There you go, that's the last one, and then now we're done with the pistons. Piston rings are in. First, second, and third. Make sure that the third piston ring is lined up well.
I'll basically have the piston ring spaced out, so you don't want any of the openings
to line up together.
To line up to the second or the third.
Alright, let me show you an example. So here's that spacing. There goes that spacing, and then that spacing. Which this one's kind of cutting it close on that one.
You could just scoot that one a little bit.
Scoot it over a little bit, and then I think we should be good. Right there. Bearings are on. thrust washers goes in here, but I don't want to put them on because then it'll fall off. We got this cleaned up for the oil pan. Thanks to Greg. Shout out to Greg. Did a really good job on this.
Alright guys, so the next step before you put in the actual pistons is you need to lube up the cylinder walls. So right here I have fresh oil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this open. I have a safety thing. I'm going to put some in the cap. I'm going to dip my 2 fingers like that, and then I'm going to just circulate around just to lube up the actual cylinder wall. Because you don't want the brand new pistons to be scraping against the cylinder wall that you just cleaned up and took time to take to the machine shop.
We just honed it out. This thing's surfaced. Everything's cleaned out. The only thing it has is the previous owner who had the motor ran too much water, and you could see all the corrosion going on inside there. But as you put new coolant and pretty much flush it out, it should be good after that. I'm not really worried about it. You gotta finger that really good.
Yeah. But these are all lubed up. You know, we just don't want to put them in dry. So I'm gonna just put this aside, get a rag, and then use the compression tool or the compression thing to compress the actual piston rings in, and then we'll slide them in, turn it over, install the crank and the thrust washer, and then last would be the griddle, and we should be kind of set.
Make sure the spacings don't line up together though, of the piston. Piston rings, sorry.
Oh yeah, well we already
yeah. Alright, this is the actual compression tool.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do right now is actually clean this tool because sometimes they get a little bit dirty. You don't want any other debris going in the motor after you actually.
So one way to do that is recommend anybody gonna rebuild an engine, just buy 3 of them because you're gonna use it a lot.
Buy as many as you can, honestly.
Yeah, you honestly use it for everything, even though it's for brakes. Supposedly, I use it for everything. I used it for the piston, the cranks. I use it for everything. Cleaned off the oil stains and everything. I think we missed this already, but we put the new oil pump, not the oil pump, coolant pump, water pump. I messed up twice. The water pump. Clean that sucker off real fast. Lubed it up with oil.
So the time has come. Before you install these, there's a proper way to install these. The pistons have usually some pistons have like an indentation here, but this one has an actual arrow. So the arrow points that way, so that's the front side of the engine. So we're gonna go ahead and drop this in. But before that, let me tighten. And just in clarification, if you don't know what the front side of the motor is basically where your crankshaft pulley would be. So the front side of your motor, you can't get that wrong. If you get that wrong, then I don't think you should be working on your engine. That's just a train of thought, guys. But so basically, slide it in. It's already lubed up. Tighten this as good as you can. You come over, try to grab something like wood or a mallet, and then just start tapping it in.
Alright, the first one is in.
I was gonna pop it out.
So we had some technical difficulties. We weren't using a good mallet. We got a better mallet, which is over here. Pretty good mallet. We got it in though, so we'll show you how to get the second one. What is it? First, second, third, fourth, whatever you guys want to call it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure the spacings are on them.
Yeah, this one's kind of.
Yeah. Make sure they're not.
Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah, we lined them up earlier, but we're just triple checking, double checking.
So just slide your compression tool over it. Your ring compressor over it. Make sure that everything's evenly distributed, and then keep turning. So again, the arrow's pointing this way. This is the front of the motor. We're gonna install it like this. Have it drop in. Again, the cylinder wall is lubricated. We're gonna grab the mallet, and then we're gonna use some brute force. And then it should just pop in just like that. So now we're just going to do the rest of these two, and then we're going to flip it over, and you'll see us installing the crank.
So we just finished putting all the pistons in. So this is how you guys want it in order to get compression on the car, on the motor. This is exactly how you want it. Nah, I'm just joking, guys. There's supposed to be 2 in and then 2 on even, so it's top dead center. This would be a horrible engine. If your shit looks like this, I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, that probably means you
the
don't have a
crankshaft.
crank anymore.
Yeah, that probably means the crank is really bad.
Alright. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull.
We gotta pull these off.
No, we're gonna pull these up first. Damn, shit's tight on there.
There we go. Got one up. There we go. Second one.
And then we'll leave those down for now. Are these 12s, right?
Yeah, they're 12s. They're not on tight, so we gotta get the torque wrench and you're gonna torque this. Gotta torque the girdle. I don't even know the torque specs yet. I need to look them up right now.
We'll find them out right now. So.
Gotta put the cap rods off.
What I've noticed to come when I'm working on Honda engines is that you see these actual rod bolts right here. They're flared. I don't know if you can see it, but they're flared. A common mistake people do is put them upside down, and then they don't get proper torque readings. So just make sure that the flared portion is down.
That's scary.
You didn't even notice that, did you?
No, I noticed the flare on it. But that'd be scary if someone put it backwards. Get the cap rod off. So I decided to reuse the piston and rods, connecting rods, because I'm not really trying to build this motor for boost at all, so it's just a daily.
Alright, so you may notice that we have bearings here, but we forgot to put the bearings on the actual connecting rods.
So before you put the pistons in, you should have the rod bearings in while you're putting the pistons already.
So yeah, it just saves you some time and hassle, and you got more mobility to be able to put them in. But this works. It's just
more momentum is pretty much what you're trying to say. It's just you don't have a cramped space here instead of the piston just on the table and putting the rod bearings on. These are brand new, so we're gonna put them on right now. Before we put the crankshaft in, we gotta use assembly lube onto the bearings. Make sure you pour
quite enough. Don't be scared to pour it on.
Yeah, it's gonna disappear anyways as soon as the motor starts.
So basically we're just gonna put some here. Make sure that your canister is though, whatever you're using. Pour some on there. Don't be afraid. If you're worried you put too much, search up some brand new built like LS, and you'll see how much they use. Like once everything's clamped down, like all the assembly loops like coming out of the side, and just a bunch. So
don't be afraid.
Yeah.
You don't want these bearings to go bad
before you
even start. First crank actually. So you got to get these ones right here too, the rod bearings. I was about to say you missed one.
It's kind of hard to get into these little crevices. Pull up the piston.
And if you build motors and you don't have this, consider yourself lucky. but you need is engine lube in order to build motors. Alright, crank is the next step to this.
Pro tip number 1, don't drop the crank.
Never drop the crank.
Yeah, whatever. So, put in here and try not to rotate them when you're in there. So this is in. We'll try to put these the opposite way so that way you can actually like move it over. And then
It's just, there we go.
over real quick. And then pick the actual rod to fit it.
Look at that. Engine lube's already squishing out. Engine lube squishing out of that one.
And then press that too. And this should be good.
The cap rods. Before you put them onto the rods, make sure the indentions are right.
Or whatever these spacers you call them. Because a lot of people I've seen them, they put on the actual rod, the connecting rods, they're on the same side. And I've had this happen where I put them all this way, and then all of a sudden, probably like 2 weeks later, all my rods, like my connecting rods, spun. And then I figured out that you're supposed to put it the other way. And most of the time, if you put it one side to the other side, it's very actually difficult to try to click in. Just keep that in mind. Put this the opposite way of the one that's already on there.
Checked.
Position checked.
And make sure before you put these rods on, make sure they're lined up. We have them lined up, organized, so that we don't get confused. We know which bolts go onto which rod and which cap rod goes onto which connecting rod or piston, whatever you guys want to name it.
And when you're building your motor, make sure you don't forget the thrust washers. Alright guys, so one of the secret weapons here at Throw Rod Garage is Javier's specialty $1,000 torque wrench from Snap-on. It even goes beep!
Torque wrench is pretty expensive though. It's like probably $800.
I don't know. Alright guys, so we're going to torque these down to 18 foot-pounds, the first sequence on the actual, just the connecting caps.
The cap rods.
And I don't recommend using like any sort of adapter, but at the moment this is all we have. 18 pounds. So here goes 18 foot-pounds. Onto the girdle. Alright, so here we have the girdle. Just trying to kind of shimmy it in there.
The bearings are already on the girdle, so
And they're already lubed up, so there's no.
yeah, we lubed them up before.
Good.
Okay, now what we're doing is we're gonna oil up the bolts onto the girdle because we want to get correct torque spec. So we got to oil them up so we get correct torque spec on those bolts. We're just gonna get them down all the way so we don't have to work too hard.
Okay, so the girdle's mounted on. All we need is the torque specs, and we're gonna torque it in sequence. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we'll get back to you when we're torquing them. You recording? Alright, so here we got the last bolt. It's about to get torqued out, and then we should be ready for the night.
We're done.
We're done. Basically, we're gonna do a little review. We put on the pistons. Hold on. A little overview. We put in the pistons. We put on the piston rings, and then we inserted the pistons. We turned it over. We put on the crank, and then we put on the girdle with the connecting rods, and that's all we did for the bottom block. The bottom block is basically set, except for that we need an oil pan. Before we do the oil pan, we're gonna put on the rear main seal and the front main seal with the oil pump. But that'll be for next video.